Before the T20I series against South Africa, one of the players who most people were curious to see how exactly he would fare was a certain Dinesh Karthik, because his IPL 2022 was phenomenal to say the least. As a finisher, he was regularly winning matches for the Royal Challengers Bangalore, and so good were his performances that he ended up earning a recall at age 37. And not just did he end up getting a recall to the squad, he ended up playing all 5 games and put in quite a respectable showing as well in the series. And if there's anything, if recent quotes by Rahul Dravid are anything to go by, then there is plenty more opportunities for Dinesh Karthik in the India Blue in the future. Yesterday, after the game against the final match against South Africa was washed out in Bengaluru, Rahul Dravid, the head coach, had plenty of interesting things to say about what would be the team structure going forward. And one of the things that he definitely noted was the fact that Dinesh Karthik will likely be in the scheme of things going forward. In fact, he said afterwards that it was very nice to see DK come in and do exactly what he had been picked to do. Of course, DK's best role, as we know, comes as a finisher and in the last 5 odd overs of the game. In fact, in the third T20I, they had done very, very well in that regard. Not just DK, but DK and Hardik had combined to do very well in the last leg of the innings. They ended up shifting the momentum towards India, and it is something that Dravid noted that DK had been picked to do. And not just that, he also said that him being being able to successfully pull this off at international level opens up a lot of options for them going forward. Now, obviously, if you've seen my video on Rishabh Pant, which I had done previously, in that I said that Dravid also said very clearly that they are looking to give Pant. He remains an integral part of that lineup, but DK's performances have been so good that, in Dravid's own words, he's not only knocked down the door, he's been banging on the door hard, and the kind of performances he's been putting in have been very good. So it does give the Indian team options. Of course, it is worth noting that in the series against South Africa, Pant was batting higher up the order at number 4. Once the likes of Surya Kumar and Virat Kohli are back in the lineup, Pant is probably not batting that high. He's probably batting 5-6 at most. And that's where DK becomes an interesting like-for-like replacement, something that Dravid has seemingly hinted at as well, thus making it pretty clear that the wicketkeeper batsman slot, as things stand, not yet entirely set in stone, despite the fact that team management retains confidence in Pant. Having an informed DK definitely helps matters, as does the fact that Rahul Dravid is willing to give players a longer rope and more opportunities to prove themselves rather than just chopping and changing on a consistent and short-term basis. In fact, it's that approach of giving players a lengthier rope that might actually help 2 players who Dravid name-checked. One was Ruturaj Gaikwad and the other was Shreyas Iyer. Now, if you look at what it is that he said about those players, he said that Shreyas, on a couple of tricky wickets, showed plenty of intent and played very positively. Now, of course, coming into the series, there was plenty of talk about Shreyas Iyer and his weakness against short bowling, which did to an extent play on his mind. You could see during the series, he did also end up getting out or struggling against short bowling on occasion. But looking beyond just the numbers and the way that his stats are, he did end up putting in, at least according to Dravid, showed some positive intent on the field, and especially so on wickets that were not the easiest to bat on. So that is a plus, at least for Dravid, in terms of how Shreyas Iyer has done in this particular series. But he also spoke about Ruturaj Gaikwad, who he said that, Ruturaj in one particular inning showed what quality and skill he has got. Obviously, if you're looking at which of the 2 Indian openers impressed more in this particular series, that would easily be Ishan Kishan, who scored 200 plus runs and was regularly, tonking balls out of the park. But Ruturaj, in that one innings which came in the third T20, showed exactly what it is that he can do with the bat and why it is that India retained faith in him at the top of the order, because he can potentially be that game changer who's comfortable against both pace, spin, and he's also a very easy player on the eye. So the good news, if you are a fan of Ruturaj Gaikwad and Shreyas Iyer, is that the team does intend to persist with them, because Dravid very clearly said, he said that I'm not going to be judging any players based on a few matches. or even a series. In fact, he said very clearly that if you have been called up to the Indian team, you've earned that chance, and it's up to us to give you as much time as possible to make the most of that call up. It's not just a case of perform or perish. It's going to be a case of we'll give you that time and we will give you a specific role, and we want you to do your best in that role. We'll give you as many opportunities as possible to flourish. That's good news, of course, for these players, but there have also been questions raised by many as to whether or not it would soon be time to actually start finalizing that squad, or the final few players at least in the squad for the T20I World Cup. Of course, we're not too far away from the T20I World Cup. It will be starting in October this year. It's already June, end of June in fact. So naturally there were also questions asked about when exactly it is that you can stop experimenting with a lot of these players and start finalizing what exactly your core is and when you will start playing with that core. To that, of course, Dravid had also an interesting answer. He said that it's important to know your top 18 to 20 players, not just 15 players. He's saying because contingency plans are needed given the times we live in. Of course, the times we live in is a very clear reference to the fact that despite, of course, a lowering in cases around the world, we still are in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. And of course, players may test positive. There might be injuries that happen at the last minute. So for Dravid, the plan is very clear. They are not going to plan just keeping a 15 in mind, but they're going to plan keeping as many as 20 players in mind, because they might just need contingency options should anything happen. He also made it very clear that the squad as things stand, or at least the final parts of those squad, the core members, dare you say, will most likely start playing together when it comes to either, he said, this series or the next. So obviously this series which is coming would be the Island series, which we know there's going to be, it's a lot of fringe players, but he did make it very clear that most likely by the time India are playing England is when you will see India's core members playing together, and England will be an interesting litmus test in that regard, because they are seen by many as favourites for the T20 World Cup. Plenty of explosive batsmen, some very good bowlers, so they would be an interesting litmus test for the Indian core, which on paper looks strong, but many people still have a few doubts as to whether or not this is a T20I World Cup winning team. We'll know that soon enough, because the core will be coming together most likely by the England series. At least that is what Rahul Dravid says. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm very excited to get to see them all play together at last, because obviously there's been plenty of experimentation in this series and there will be some in the Island series as well. But it would be fun to see a full strength Indian team faring, or how they fare against a top T20I side. So I'm very excited for that. I hope you guys are as well. Let me know if you're excited, nervous, dreading it, whatever it may be in the comments. And with that, I'm bringing an end to this particular video. So thank you all so much for joining us. Don't forget to press that like button. Leave us a comment below letting us know what it is you thought about Dravid's views or my views or any one of our views. We always welcome your feedback, and your love is always appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Last but not least, hit the bell icon so that you know exactly when it is we are either going live or uploading a new video. Thank you all once again so much for joining us. As always, I'm Shane Reyes, and I will see you guys very, very soon.